There's a lot of choices in life. And the thing of it is, there's a lot of deception in life and there's a lot of truth in life. There's bad and there's good. Well, let's think about what path that we're walking on. There was the path with pretty things like the flowers on the tree, or there's a path that's going to be rather dark, dirty, rocky, holy, holy as far as HOL, pits that you'll fall in. Those things we don't want. We want to keep away from that. But the problem is, sometimes the bad things are deceiving. They're not what they look. Things are not always what they look like. Now, these look pretty bad. These are some sort of a mushroom growing on a log. And you say, man, I wouldn't want to eat that. They're dirty, they're tore apart, they're old. But some mushrooms look really nice and very appetizing looking. But if you eat them, they'll kill you. And others, if you eat them, they'll make you really sick. But then there's some that's really good. And unless you've really studied and know what you're looking at, you don't know which mushroom you're picking up to eat. And that could be really dangerous. So mostly we trust those that raise the mushrooms and we buy them from the stores or whatever. But that's just kind of an analogy that I wanted you to think about. Because many times we are deceived and we choose the wrong mushroom, so to speak. Now look at this flower growing here. It's really pretty, but sometimes we don't have the patience to wait for it to go to seed. It's not only beautiful right now, but if we leave it alone and just give it water or whatever, like that, it will produce seed that's going to give us good, nutritious plants to eat to help us to be healthy so we can have a brain to think with, to do some research with, so that we will know what mushroom to pick, so to speak. We will know what path to choose to walk on. I think about the poem from Robert Frost about the two paths in the woods, and he looks at the one that's heading down into the deep woods where he would love to go. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. We need to be wise in our decisions on paths that we choose. Sometimes we see something that we think might be really good and we want to take it and just on the spur, so we just go and we take it and we fall in a pit or whatever, because we didn't take time to finish what we were doing. We didn't do our responsibilities. Like in this poem, he had a responsibility and he had to go fulfill it. We really have to calculate, which bug we're going to pick up and eat, like these chickens that are picking through the grass and finding bugs and roots and different things like that. Now I want to talk a little bit to you about there being so much deception in the world. And there is a lot of deception, a lot of things being told us that isn't the truth. We can't trust everybody and everything like we used to. Let me give you an example, just for example's sake. Everybody was worried about us getting into a war with Russia. Well, our government reminds me of a banty rooster that thinks he's the cock of the walk and ready to pick a fight. They have reasons, though, that they want to do that. But if you look into it, Putin said he wasn't even interested in invading that country over there. So, who knows? I don't know Putin. I never met the man. I'm not saying he's a Christian or anything like that, but I did have heard that he was against the New World Order, so their cronies are gonna make him look bad every way they can and like the bad guy. So all I'm saying is I'm not choosing sides here. I'll leave that up to you to choose whoever you want to choose. But remember, sometimes we are being primed to think a certain way. We hear propaganda all our life. We are we want to think against certain people and for others, and it may not be the case. Things may have changed. There was a lot of changes that happened, especially during the Reagan era, in that regards. But I'm not going to go into all that. I just wanted to use it as an example. I really didn't think we'd go to war with him, but I didn't know because our country is just itching for one right now. It seems like not the people, the government. Um, but I'm just using that as an example. There's always been deception. Even in the Bible, Apostle Paul said that there was people preaching another Jesus. It wasn't a different man, but they were saying things that weren't the real, like what Jesus really was like. Clear back then. It's a lot worse now, I think. There's just deception. There's always been deception. The Bible says that Satan is the father of lies. So we need to be careful who we listen to. Okay, now I've talked a little bit about deception, but there's also the path of truth. When I was in college, I had a teacher that she wanted us to write an article on a paper on what is truth. Well, Jesus is truth. He's the way, the truth, and the life. That's where you're going to find truth, is in the Word. But you have to be careful because a lot of people tell you things and they program you even in that direction in religion. We don't want religion. No. We want a relationship with Jesus Christ. In His Word is truth. He is the Word. Okay, there's a lot in that right there now, but I'm not going to get into it. It's just I'm trying to guide you towards truth. There's Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And if we seek Him, we're going to start finding truth. And if we come to know Him and build that relationship, we're going to find truth more often in our life, because we can start getting directed more on the path of truth than on the path of lies. So even the Bible, they put out new versions that leave out words and put things wrong, and you have to really be careful. I use the KJV, but even that's been distorted a little bit, but it's the closest that I know of the main Bibles that we have today, and you can also use it in the Strongs to do research. So that's why I suggest KJV. When everybody had the KJV, it was much easier to learn the scriptures, because when you'd see things, it would always be in KJV, and the more you saw a verse, the more you could learn it. I've talked a little bit about this in my Bible study. That's why I suggested people have that. And you can look up in the concordance the words that are in there and trace them back with the numbers on it. If you know anything about the concordance, I talk about that too in my Bible study, so that you'll know what the original word said, get a better idea of what the verse is saying, so on and so forth. Well, what I'm trying to say is, if you get a basis for truth, then when you go from there, it might be more easy to recognize truth in your everyday life as well. Because right now we're in a war, an information warfare of good versus evil. And what path are you taking? It's not necessarily, you may be pretty moral, but still not be seeing truth. It's not just being moral. It's having discernment of truth. And what is truth? Back to it again, it's Jesus Christ, the good, the righteous. And the evil are trying to overtake that. They always have, but it's pretty obvious right now. They've come more out in the open, and they've infiltrated into all the high places, CEOs, government, just about in the churches, in the schools. They're even in local governments, and we still have a few good ones, but they're all have been infiltrated so much that they figure they've got it under their thumb now, and they're a little bit more in the open. They still hide some things, but it's a battle that we're in. Christians have always been in a spiritual warfare, but now it's come down into the physical even more, I think, than it ever has. There has been periods in history where it was pretty bad, but right now it's worldwide. And it's really important that we open up our eyes to see what's going on and to know. But at the same time, we don't need to get so obsessed with it, because then that pulls us out of a balance. So if we get obsessed with all the bad news and all the research, and we have to definitely research, but we also need to keep our focus on our family, our friends, nature. We need to be in nature. Nature seems to be a great balancer. To me, it's when I'm in my garden or out watching my chickens or walking out in nature somewhere, it really seems to balance me. I think maybe because we get away from so much artificial stuff that is not of God. We are getting closer to the side that He intended for us. So it's really, really important that we spend time with our families and our friends, that we initiate our friendships, that we be kind to others, and that we spend time in nature. It's very grounding. Okay, so overall, let's just think on things that are lovely, think on things that are of a good report and truth. But when we get to the part about the truth, sometimes it's hard to find, and that's where the research comes in, looking and comparing. And like I said, first of all, you have to have a foundation in truth to really see truth for what it is. You can see some, but I tell you, when you get the foundation in the Word and then you start looking around you, things start falling into place. So, yeah, now look at this head of broccoli. That makes me feel so good. I grew that from seed, you guys. I grew that from seed. Yeah! Right now is broccoli season for me, so I'm really enjoying my broccoli. I planted it last fall. This is one of those things that I love to share with you guys about the garden. I am hoping that my phone is recording okay here. I'm having a little bit of problems with it. I've been lately. But anyway, I like to share with you about the garden, things that are good and healthy for you. If we have a healthy mind, then maybe we can think properly and see properly a little bit easier in our research and looking and comparing. It's hard right now to find truth because so many things are being hid and changed. You go things that Wikipedia said one time and they've been changed, and things on Google, they put it in a certain way to put their agenda in it sometimes, and they may tell you basically what it is, but they'll say, but it's really not that bad or whatever, when it really is or whatever. I mean, there's just so many things that's going on right now. It's really hard to find truth. You can't believe everything or anything hardly. And even things that I tell you, I would suggest you research it out. Maybe I'm wrong once in a while about something. And you don't know me, so you need to research whatever I say. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't like liars, but you don't know that. So take everything from everybody with a grain of salt. If you know the Lord, you can pray about it and ask for discernment and then research a little bit. I got to tell you a story. I had a friend, I hadn't met her husband. He was had lost his legs in the war. He was in a wheelchair and he didn't get out a lot. But I went to her home to meet her husband. Well, they had a dog. And right here in my video, I'm showing you how my plants have grown. But the dog didn't like me, so he didn't think I was a good person. Well, that's because I'd been with my goats. So the next time I went over there, I took a shower, and the dog rejoiced to see me, just loved me. So I guess then he figured I wasn't, well, I guess she's not such a bad person. But you really need, you can't always take, first impressions aren't always right. So I'm just encouraging you to look at deception, look at truth, find out what's right and what's not. And in the long run, too, within it all, keep your mind and your heart as best you can on the Lord, but also with your family, your friends, and spend time out in nature. I tell you, these little beets coming up have been so exciting for me. So they're growing, and I wanted to share it with you. It looks like I got a little spinach seed growing there next to it or something. Hopefully it's a spinach and not a weed. But I will catch you guys all next time, and hope you got something out of this rant.